Hello and welcome to this week's Coaching for Self-Belief podcast with Pete and Andy. Pete, what have you got for us this week?
Well, the GROW model is the thing of interest this week. And to just show how easy it is to implement the GROW model. And for those of you out there who aren't aware of the GROW model, it's an acronym that was developed by Sir John Whitmore that became sort of a bedrock of business coaching around the world, got super popular. So you may well have come across it. And G stands for goals, R stands for reality, O for options, and W for what will I do. So it can be seen by some people to be something that's quite long-winded, but it doesn't have to be. And so that's what happened this week, as a way of giving some academy kids at the club ownership of their goals. Sat them down at the beginning of the session and gave them all an index card, just a simple card to write on. Quickly explained the GROW model, as I just have, and then asked them, by Christmas, think of one thing that you'd like to improve. And so it was all then up to them what they thought of. And so they wrote down G, it might have been, I want my backhand to be as good as my forehand was one of the ones that came up. And so, let's go on to R, what's the reality, what's happening right now? And then, she'd say, well, it feels like my forehand's much more consistent. She's writing that down. I'm hitting my backhand long, and it doesn't feel quite so steady. So she was writing that down. Everyone was writing different things, so they had ownership of their goal. And then looking at options, and we had a discussion around that. And that some of them weren't that aware that they can not only get help from the coaches, but they can hop onto YouTube and get ideas. They can talk amongst themselves and other people at the club. They can read autobiographies and there's lots of resources out there that perhaps they weren't fully aware of. So that's all in the options stage. They wrote down just some of the things that seemed to be interesting to them. And then we got to the what will you do bit, and they narrowed it down to so, for instance, there's one guy who wanted to improve his serve that was inconsistent, and he narrowed it down to, well, I live near the park. Twice a week, I can go to the park and just practice my place up, and that's something that I can easily and definitely do. And so he wrote it down, and then the interesting thing was that only took 10 to 15 minutes, and then the kids all went off, split into groups with another coach, and over the next week it was interesting to see how there was perhaps a slight extra bit of motivation, an extra bit of enthusiasm from them, that they'd chosen something that they wanted to work on, so they wanted to do it. And so some of the sessions later in the week were, involved some buddy coaching, where another of the coaches at the club was helping them to work with each other on the goals that they'd chosen, and just created a bit of a buzz, which was really quite nice to see, that they had ownership of it, and that they felt involved in that way. Almost the beginnings of creating a coaching culture, which is another conversation to have another day. That a club can have not just coaches that are qualified coaches, but that almost everybody could learn the coaching skills and help each other improve, create a lovely learning environment that way. So just really to highlight that the GROW model can be used really simply in that way, that even at the beginning of a lesson, that could walk on court with somebody and you could use the grow model conversationally, that you could just say, okay, so what do you want to work on today? Where are you right now with it? Okay, so what are the things that we could do to practice it right now? Okay, so what do you want to choose? And then in a few minutes, you've set a goal just using the grow model really effectively, and also that it's non-directive in that way, that you've not jumped in with your agenda. It's a way to bring in a non-directive goal-setting process, and to help coaches to do that easily. But of course, there's other ways to use Grow. You can get involved with it on a more of a business level, and that's what you've been involved in as well, Andy, with the mentoring scheme, isn't it? So how's that worked for you?
Yeah, it works exactly the same way, doesn't it? Which is so interesting, that it's sort of universal in terms of giving responsibility to the learner, or the one that wants to change something, and particularly in business coaching, which is kind of what we've been doing. So our training a few of us up to be coach mentors, with the aim of working with head coaches, and to find answers to problems themselves, by using the grow model, by being non-directive as much as possible. So from the person being coached, and helping raise their awareness so they can find their answers, and finding what those are. And so it's very closely linked with the inner game stuff, that there's, even when you're working through the grow model, people will have interferences, things that will, from taking the W, or what are you going to do next. And that's an interesting thing to bear in mind from you, particularly in business, where you might say to somebody, okay, what might stop you from doing this? But I think it can happen as well. We see it happen more physically on a tennis court, where somebody sort of just stutters before hitting the backhand, so there's some mental interference going on. So we might address that, by asking them what are they noticing at the ball. So it's very similar in a way, and of course, me and you both know, Pete. John came up with the grow model with Tim Galway in the game methodology.
Yes,
it's a great model. Yeah.
And one of the things that Sir John Whitmore highlights in his book, it became a very popular business manual in a way, Coaching for Performance, didn't it? And he emphasizes in that book that the grow model is only truly effective if it's within the context of awareness and responsibility. And so that's the link with effective questioning, and the link with the inner game principles, because responsibility has to do with giving somebody choice. If I choose something, then I'm responsible for it. And awareness and choice and trust are the three pillars of the inner game philosophy, if you like. So there's such a lovely link between the grow model and the inner game philosophy. But just to remember that, I think, is important, isn't it? That that you could use the grow model and be very directive about it, and just tell someone, right, this is what we're going to be working on. This is what it looks like right now. I'm looking at this option or this option, so let's do this one. And then somebody comes out of it feeling completely disempowered. So it's if used in the way that John Whitmore wanted it to be used, then it's a way of helping someone to feel empowered.
Sure. I was thinking also, where it's not that maybe you're working on trading or building from the back of the court. Have to be directive in setting the theme for the session, but then within that, doing a grow model. So okay, we're deep, forehands and backhands. what are your goals? What would you like to achieve doing this? And if it's to play on my backhand, check in by saying what's happening at the moment, what's your reality at the moment, and the options might be what options have you got for consistency, and then the W, how are you going to do that? So I do think it perhaps for coaches, if you try to use it on the individual group setting, it might be better for the coach maybe to set the overall aim for the session. But maybe you ask the coach, and one of the children or players might come up and say, yeah, let's do hitting deep, or let's do approaching the net and finishing our volley.
Yeah. There's different approaches whether you're working with a group or an individual, and how you choose to play that. But just to keep it really simple for today's podcast, is just that message that if you're not already using the Grow model, to have a play with it, to realize that it's a simple tool to help people feel like they have more ownership of the lesson, that it will help them be focused, it will help them feel more motivated. If you do it using effective questions and you ask them what they'd like to improve, where they are with it right now, what are the options for setting up a practice, and okay, let's choose one of these. It was one of the nice things with this group of kids was to let them know the week following the introduction to the Grow model that we were keeping their index cards in the coach's office, and at any time that they wanted to add a new goal or to change their goal, add more options, that was something that they could do as well. So it's not to say that the coaches haven't got their agenda to help the kids and their own goals, but that this little bit of their training is theirs, and that's just nice for them. It's going to help them have self-confidence and self-belief.
And what a skill for life they've learned as well.
Yeah. Very good. So how would you wrap all of that up?
Have a go at being non-directive, and in the back of your mind, get familiar with what GROW stands for, because it stands for goal, reality, your options, what are your options, and how are you going to do what you've chosen, right? And if you have that, and it can help you when you're asking the players what they would like to do. Have a go at that.
Yep. And just to realize how simple it can be. So yes, have it in the back of your mind, and have a play with it, and see what happens. Very good. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.